which is basically like a 101 on how to get the most out of Copilot, since most of you, that's what you're using. On the call, I have colleagues Benjamin Dowd and Rahul Kumar, who I've worked with over the years extensively. Last week, Ben took us through the different models and what those different models are used for. He gave some examples, and we got into like, what is an LLM and some of those kinds of things. So I'm going to do a recap, and I'm going to try and get it down to 10, 15 minutes so we can have some time for Q&A. So Copilot. What is Copilot? Well, that's Microsoft's AI or LLM. The great thing about Copilot is that it knows a lot about you because it already has access to Active Directory. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all those things. When you do some customization to Copilot, it has all this other information. For example, if I was working for a client and I was using my Copilot there, I could say, who do I report to? What's the organizational structure of this? I could ask questions like, Deepak, you know how there were challenges. So what I did is I took the stuff summarized from the emails and chat. I said, comb through all my emails, all of my chats, all of my everything, and distilled a 1 to 2 page brief of the problem, what we were trying to solve for, and what are the main areas of scope. So I've already done some personalization to Copilot. It put together this summary that I gave to a VP, and he has in his back pocket. So if somebody asks him, hey, what is this thing? What is this problem? It's nicely organized by problem statement. Here's the 5 or 6 areas. Here's why we have to be able to do this. I didn't have to do a lot of work in the drafting because it knows my tone of voice. I was able to comb through all that information and create summary. Whenever you're using these tools, you own the output. Andrea, go ahead.
So you said it knows your tone of voice. How does it know it?
I will show you that right now. Open up your Copilot. When you do that, you can click on the 3 dots and you go into settings. So when I go to personalizations, I can go into custom instructions. I can click edit. And you see here, there's this big, long text window. What I've done is I've basically written how I want it to behave, how I want it to think, working style. Think like an owl, slow, observant, analytical, examine things from multiple perspectives, but be direct, pragmatic, no sugarcoating. Andrea, if you go into this personalization, you can put in basically a prompt about how you want it to operate, things that you want it to know about you. The organization allows certain people to have certain permissions. So personalization. Why is this important? Because you can teach it your tone of language. What you kept on doing, it kept on saying, so I went in and added a line to say, I want you to think like that, but not to actually tell me that. Prompt engineering. It's just that text box that I just put in there, and you build up a repertoire of prompts. I'll give you an example. There's a VP that's working on a prompt that he put in, and he scheduled it to run every day. Combs through his emails, his chats, returns to him his kind of priorities or anything that he's committed to that he has to follow up with. So that's something that you can do a scheduled task. Anybody have questions about that?
Where do you go to schedule that?
I'm going to actually ask Copilot how to schedule things in Copilot. Hover over the prompt, click schedule this prompt.
It is connected already to your calendar. It's connected to your Outlook. It's connected to Teams.
They were asking for was to be able to schedule the prompt to run on a regular basis. Like, for example, that prompt about an executive summary, right? So we just did an example of it. So I just asked this prompt. Where is it here? I asked it, what meetings do I have up? And look, it's just showing these AI meetings, right? These are in a work calendar. Then if I go down here to the 3 dots and I click on schedule this prompt, it says da-da-da-da. So this is the prompt exactly as I typed it in, and I can schedule it. You can start it at this time, run it at a certain time every day until it ends, okay? So what will happen is Copilot will just do that prompt. I go to Copilot, it'll show me the results of that prompt. Does that answer a question?
Okay.
Thumb up. Okay, so I'll take that as yes.
Just to share one thing that I do, I have a project that tracks the financial markets. So I just tell Copilot or GPT or whichever LLM I'm using that, give me a summary of the financial markets every morning starting 6 a.m. And I get that summary in my email. So as John was saying, and as Ben, you also said, you can just tell it what you want it to do and then provide how you want it, and it would just schedule that automatically.
So like ChatGPT, Claude, those other ones, I'm assuming Gemini can do it as well. So that's how you can do it. So either you can tell it, I want you to run this on a weekly basis, or the way to do it is if I've just done a prompt, it's one that I want to keep using, I hit the 3 dots, I do the schedule this prompt, okay? So that is personalization, and that is how to schedule a prompt. What's the difference between the work and the web? So work accesses all of the files that you've created or on your OneDrive, your email, your Teams, your everything else, everything in your your work ecosystem, right? Because I'm using a Copilot that really is for me and my personal business, it's only accessing a very small thing. But for a lot of you, you work in a large organization, right? You can ask it to tell me what's going on with this other kind of a project. If you've been shared those files, or if those files have been made public to all employees in your organization, it will have access to it. So it can go and it can get information that you haven't even seen if someone has made that file public. So for give an example, feedback. Let's say you drafted something, okay, and you went to share it and you shared it to all organization, but you never sent it to me. But it's on the topic that I'm looking for. Well, when I go to Copilot and I have work tab and I ask for something, it'll say, oh, I found this thing actually that Deepak had authored or that had communicated or whatever, but you hadn't actually seen it. And it'll give me kind of the source and say that it came from Deepak. Okay, so that's the power of kind of the work tab versus the web. The web is where you're searching things externally and you're going into the broader web to do research. But even when you use work, if you're asking for something, it still will go to the web if it can't find information internally. Okay. Here's the other big thing that I strongly recommend you guys do. In Copilot, think of it, I don't know, I would say it's like a shell, okay? It's not really an LLM of itself or an AI of itself. It uses Opus, which is by Claude, and it uses GPT, which is by OpenAI. So it's using these other big LLMs. Okay, so if you're using ChatGPT and you have this GPT, 5.5 selected, you're typing it into Microsoft, but it's actually OpenAI that's doing the thinking, okay? If I were to click this one here, Opus, which is Claude, which is the one that I use most of the time because I just find it's really good at deep thinking work. I find it does a really good job with writing summaries, creating PowerPoints, that kind of stuff for me. So I generally use Opus all the time, okay? Now, if this was yours and you were paying for this, you might not want to do this because it uses more tokens. And so, but if you're using this in an organization and the organization is paying that cost, you want to choose the model that works best for you. I would assume most of you are doing, knowledge work. So I wouldn't choose the quick response very often here, right? I would choose the think deeper, right? Or I would choose the Opus because it'll give you a more tangible result. How often,
take a
just
quick
curiosity
step back,
on this
Jonathan?
call. Yep, go ahead.
Just a quick step back, just for those who maybe don't know what tokens are and how this works specifically for an LLM. It's the communication that goes back and forth. Every time you type something, it breaks it into tokens. So maybe it's just a couple letters, maybe it's one letter, for example. The more tokens that you're using, that's now how the LLMs are charging for. And it can actually adjust the charges based on the models. This 4.8 just came out. Today, it is by far the most expensive right now. As time goes on, that will come down and other models come out and get more popular. So the price per token actually is valid. I just would not be surprised if organizations that today are not charging will soon start to charge because it will start to hit definitely the pocketbook of the organization as it's using more and more tokens. But until that happens, use whatever you can. And definitely Claude is on this scale much better.
That's a great point. And yeah, so tokens is like a unit of measurement of almost like of thought, but it's really a unit of measurement of like words, right? And kind of like a grouping, like your calendar might be 3 tokens or something like that. But the higher models that do a lot more thinking, I would argue are smarter, not to anthropomorphize, but use more tokens. But like if you're summarizing something, you could use a simpler model. Like for example, Anthropic, which is the company that make Claude, they have one called Haiku. That Haiku model is the one that's actually used, I believe, in Genesis when they're doing a call summary. And it's designed to be fast, right? But it's not going to give you the quality of the result that if you use, say, Opus 4.7 or 4.8. The problem with using 4.7 or 4.8 is it'll take longer. So if I'm on a call and the AI is giving me a call summary, it needs to appear pretty quickly. So if you use one of those other models, it might take, 10 seconds, 20 seconds or whatever. And I'm supposed to get on to the next call. So there's trade-offs, right, of using a fast and quick model versus a deep thinking. But again, if you're doing knowledge work where you're doing research, you're writing papers, you're creating PowerPoints, you're doing analytics, analyzing data, my bias is to use the ones that are the higher tokens. Because, and that, yes, it will cost you more. A lot of plans, they cap out after, I don't know, an hour or two, and then you just got to wait to come back a couple of hours later. For example, a lot of the plans now are $20 or whatever. I use a max plan because I do a lot of work using AI. I do a lot of first drafts. I do a lot of collaboration. A lot of stuff that Ben, Rahul, and I do involves a lot of that. So I don't want to wait for 2 hours to be able to continue doing my workflow. I want to be able to keep doing it right now. Model selection, important. I would not trust auto. I don't know what your guys' experiences have been, but I've used auto before, and I've found that for a very simple task like summarize this or whatever, sure. But if I wanted to write like a draft, I wanted to do whatever, I tend to go to some of the others. Okay. That is the quick and dirty of a Copilot. You know how to personalize. I strongly recommend everybody personalize. You know how to use kind of work versus web, and you know how to be able to select here. And we also covered how to be able to schedule. So given we still got another 9 minutes or so, why don't we open it up to questions? And Rahul, Ben, you help me out here if you want to take some of them, but I've got some questions from the other times. Like we're not going to get, I think there was one, somebody had something around ethics. I think we're going to cover that at a later time because that's a pretty long discussion, but just open it up for questions. Somebody wants to hold up their hand, like use the hand gesture thing in Teams, we'll call on you. And okay, Mel.
So that schedule thing, only after I personalize it, then I am able to conduct that
Nope.
schedule, right? Because I
Nope.
just said
You
to
can schedule
schedule a
the time.
meeting with you and it didn't do it. It just said, oh, you could go to Outlook, you could click on blah, blah, blah. It was giving me direction, but it wasn't really scheduling it for me.
Well, so there's two things. I was showing how to schedule a prompt now. So a prompt is like, I'm asking the Copilot to give me some information or do some research. I'll give you that Rahul, right? Rahul said that he wants it to do research on the markets and stocks and stuff every day, every morning. Rather than him take that prompt, paste it into the window and click go, he has it that he's put it in once and then he just set it to run over and over again. Okay, so
Oh,
I
you're
think you're talking
scheduling the
about booking a
prompt.
meeting.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I was
Cool.
just talking about a prompt. So I'll give there's a maybe I'll share with you guys there's two prompts that, again, the reoccurring one of what do I owe people? What am I behind in? Or what do I have that meetings that I have to get prepared for and get ready for? Those are two prompts that, I can send out to everybody. And again, prompt is just like words, right? Like it's a paragraph or two or whatever. So I'd strongly recommend you guys to, watch some of these things on social media or on LinkedIn or, whatever vehicle you use. Because honestly, that's how I got my prompts. I got ideas from those and I just eventually cobbled mine together. I think Ellis put a question there. Do one of you guys want to take it or you? What they said, Google changed their token model. Do you know about it and what does it mean for end users? So I think it means that they're now charging for more than, I think the free tier has kind of changed a little bit, but Ben, I'm not really sure. Ben, Rahul, do you guys know what happened with this?
To lead into a little bit more detail with that is that it also has separated out what you use it for. It goes across various models. Again, that's newer, and the other LLMs will very quickly follow suit because the costs are going up and up and up, and the usage is just skyrocketing.
Well, and I think when they do things like video and audio, how many people on this call have already personalized their Copilot, but not outside of the bank?
Changing it from auto to deep thinker. So now I will go ahead and put it in the prompt so it knows how I speak.
Yeah, but you can say, take that, paste that into here and say, tell me what you would recommend editing about this, given my tone of voice, given my emails. Like, go and research my tone of voice. Tell me what it is. When you have the work tab clicked on, it has access to all your emails, all your teams, every Word document written inside the bank. So use the LLM to help you to do some of that heavy lifting and that research.
I was just saying that I customized my Copilot.
The other thing too that I didn't cover here is memories. If it tells you something that's wrong, ask it to correct it and tell it to remember the corrections. Like, for example, I can say, remember that this person doesn't report to me. There you go. It says she hasn't personalized Copilot yet. She has personalized her ChatGPT. So all I had to do is say, remember this. And it remembers it. It stores it and keeps like an ongoing memory. And that's pretty powerful.
It gets better over time.
Paula, you have your hand up?
Yes. One question. I see that we have agents already set up. What is the...
If you're doing deep analysis, you can use Opus. When you use the term, you can be using any model. So agent is like a front end. Think of it as a front end. And behind the scenes, it's connected to some LLM. So I'm not sure which agent you're referring to it and which model it is connected to. But if you're doing deep work, I think Opus is the way to go.
Thank you.
Agentic AI.
The difference between that and an agent unto itself is building the agent with a trigger that says, this is when you start this piece and this is when it ends. So you have the process already built out, and you can identify each one of those pieces that go into it. So what is that process? Well, that process can now be flipped into an agent where an LLM is one of the tools in that agent. Simpler in the usage, but at the same time, more complex in all the pieces that it's collaborating with.
That's
Very close.
excellent.
Andrea?
Well, one comment about that, what you're talking about, it's that yesterday in the event we were also talking about LLM versus LAM. And then I have the Copilot just producing the whole document, and then I go and refine it. So like now I will change the tone of voice so I don't have to refine it that much. I will just review it. But is there anything that I can just decrease the amount of effort from my side on the first step, on the putting the ideas, or if that will always be required?
So structure. I think what you can do is if you give it examples, Andrea, you can give it. So what I often do is I have templates. I'll give you an example. I had to do a master service agreement, a statement of work, and an NDA. Okay. I had templates of those because I've signed NDAs in the past. I've signed master service agreements. I've signed SALs in the past. So I took some of those templates and I put them into this. So I did, this little thing here. I just did plus. I added the files and I said, based on these, I need to create versions for my company to do a certain kind of work. I want it to be, easily read, but I want it to be legally sound. And I give it a whole bunch of things about this is the kind of work for this person in one cell, and this is the kind of work for this person in this cell. But I said, I want you to draft them, and I want you to tell and ask me clarifying questions before you actually draft it. Like do the research and then ask me clarifying questions, and then actually do the writing. So what I would do, Andrea, is I would give it some examples. I would change the tone of voice, and I would also kind of, instead of taking that document and going live in and edit it, take that document, maybe like look at it and mark it up and keep like notes on what you're making changes to that document. Take those notes, and instead of writing those over top of the document, unless it's like, 80, 90% of the way there, place them in and say, I like this about it. I don't like this about it. I want you to change this. I want you to do that, whatever. Make these revisions and review the document for anything else for this kind of an audience or this kind of a purpose that you might suggest.
So I think that the template
Go
is
ahead.
not the issue. Like the template, it's fine. It's more that input that I have already discussed with many people, with my stakeholders before I have compiled all the ideas and put it in a document. So that's what
Okay.
the step that I was trying just to save myself if I have already had all those discussions, just to have it like
Research it.
compiled somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have it researched.
So 100%.
Yeah,
So that's probably, then we should probably go further back, right?
Mhm.
You could say, please research based on this topic to produce this kind of a document for this kind of an outcome, like for this use case. All of my emails, chats, any documents that are available within, my work context, and take maximum thinking time. Like put those kinds of things and choose the Opus model or choose the GPT Think Deep. Get it to do the research first. And then once you have the research and you read it and you go, "Ooh, I like this, I want more," tell it, "I want more," or "What about this?" or expand on that. When you get the research done, then say, "Okay, now I want you to draft this in a document in this way for me using this kind of a format or template or whatever," right? Like most of the time now, I only actually edit final drafts. I take the research and I read the research and then I tell it to change or to keep researching or follow down something, and then I take the research and I put it into something. I have a command called /brief in my in Claude. So I use Claude a lot outside of work, but Claude is the same thing as that Opus, and I have it do research. Like I'll be driving into a meeting, and I don't know a lot about maybe some certain client that's going to be there or what their interests are, and I'll say research this person, this company relative to this. I'm having a meeting with them in about 2 hours. Get as maximum research, maximum thinking time, and then distill it into a brief. And what it'll often do is it'll do that. And sometimes in the car, I'll put it on voice mode and it'll actually read it out to me and tell me what it is. Does that help, Andrea?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I
Wh-
guess that some information about other people, I cannot have it researched because of privacy within the bank, right? Like if I'm using still Copilot, like could I ask, okay, so if I am getting ready, let's say that I am writing the prompt for the summary of the Copilot for the Genesis Copilot, I mean, for day-to-day banking, and I want to research the type of calls that they have. Like, could I get an output from
What,
there, like from the discussions
what,
that the LOB leaders have had about that?
if they've made files public, then it will be able to read their files. If they haven't, like public as in, you can choose, and when you're sharing a document, you can choose the top right and say, make this available to everybody in my organization. It will know that. It won't know their emails, their chats, unless they've had them with you.
Okay.
And it won't know calls. But if you, let's just say you took a whole bunch of transcripts of calls, like the actual files, you put them in and you said, research these and give me some recommendations of I don't know, how to create a really good call summaries. The challenge is that from my experience, these things work really well when you give them like a desired outcome, right? Like I want this and I want it to be structured this way. But if you just give it write me a call summary for this, what you'll find is that the Opus will probably give you a much better one than, say, that natural native Genesis because it's using a simpler haiku model. But you could say, take this transcript, Opus, create a call summary of no more than 3 lines, and then when it gives it to you, if you like it, say, okay, now how would I get haiku model to give me this output? Write me a prompt to get me this output based on this transcript, specifically for the haiku model.
Okay.
And then take that prompt that it'll give you the prompt, give that, try it, and put it in to the Genesis system that uses haiku and see, does it give you kind of what you were looking for better? Like ask the LLM to almost like help you is
okay.
A thought. Rahul?
Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Andrea, listening to you and John. Sometimes what happens is, and I think somebody wrote it in the chat as well, they have like 10,000 tokens available. 10,000 tokens is not that much tokens. I'll lay that out. So when you're trying to work with the model, it is possible, and I don't know, the organizations can set a token limit. And how the model works is that it builds up the memory. And in building the memory also, it uses tokens, and that is called context tokens. So sometimes the organizations may restrict the amount of context tokens that a model can use. If that is the case, then if you're sending it like extensive instructions, it would only remember part of those instructions, because when that token count runs out, it will not remember anything further than that. So to get around that, what you can do is you can train it or you can talk to it in chunks. That's called chunking. So what you can do is you can break down your instructions into very specific instructions that it can remember at a time, and then you build on top of that. That is to work around that context window constraint, which I think might be happening how you're describing the symptoms.
Yeah, and I know that we all have limitations on the Copilot because we have that what has been granted to us as users, but I'm also working with the SIDA team, and I know that they use, like, they have access to other models and like much more capabilities that I do have. But like, it's a great idea that I can have them writing, like have the AI writing the prompt. So because we have been got to the point that we are happy with the prompt that we have, but it's being written manually, and maybe there is an opportunity to even maximize it with the other model to write it for us.
The other piece I was going to recommend there is to make full use of the library that you have in Copilot as well, because that's where you can upload a lot of documents and information that you need, so that it uses that in its memory and as a guide for its output as well.
Which library?
And you see it here on the screen that John is displaying. You have new chat, search, and library on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's your library. And again, you can upload documents. You can use that to even create documents. You can put even pictures in it. It has an image option there, so you can load that. So depending on what your way of using this is for you, then that can actually refine a lot better your outputs.
Okay.
Is that almost
Yeah,
like giving it again
I
references
know
like
that we are.
templates, Ben? Like it's given like templates or context,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, context, templates, exactly. And even if you, use it and then alter it, it'll update the template as it goes.
Yeah, I
And
use it all the
Good.
time. I just keep putting in stuff in there, like adding stuff, and it kind of references that. And sometimes, like, if you build your library over a period of time, and if you're asking something that maybe you referenced a couple of months ago or even in the past, it would ask you, do you want me to go and reference that memory or that
Yeah.
file? So yeah, it's handy. And that way it
So that other
remembers.
So if it's something that you're doing a lot and you want it to reference that thing often, put it here, right? Like for example, I gave the example of MSA, SAL, and NDA. So once I had I did that first chat round, and I kind of, basically created those drafts. When they were the final product that I sent out to people, I took those files and I actually put them into here in this version in Claude, so that whenever I need to do a new MSA and do a new SAL or whatever, it already has a template that I've already approved and I've already used, right? So it'll say, use the one that, for X, but now change it based on ABC. But it already has that kind of stored in memory, right?
so we have some transcripts that we have had masked, so they don't have any PII. So what I could do is just upload them in here and have
Yeah.
the AI to create a prompt and give it the samples of the good summaries that I have got
Yes.
written
Exactly.
manually, so they can
Yes.
they can validate the AI can validate the prompt that I have and see like if I have any opportunities for enhancement.
Yeah. So, like for example, if you took a transcript called transcript call one, and you have a call summary that you've approved and is based on that transcript, but you have edited and it's the right one, you put those in, right? That gives it an example of how to take a transcript to what the outcome that you're looking for, right? So that gives it's almost like training information.
Yep.
Right?
Got it.
Okay. I think I know we're well over time, but hopefully everybody found this useful, and we might need to extend it, guys,
Super
because I think we get a
useful.
lot of
Super
questions.
useful. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Jonathan, I know that we are going to schedule one about ethics. What I was looking for, it's specifically that, like, because I have been having a lot of conversations with the privacy team and with security
Yeah.
teams, and how do the output, things that I never thought of, like how the output, because it's going to be used by the next agent or by anyone, like they have to have that ethics component on how that information is going to be used. So I just want to ensure that I cover all of those things.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think we're not experts in that, right? We can't tell you in your organization how to do it, but I think we were going to take that away. I think next week was going to be Rahul is going to cover some agentic AI stuff, and I think maybe the week after that, Ben, maybe we could get to the, some of that kind of ethics PII stuff and give like an overview of the industry and kind of where things are at right now. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely.
Be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful what you teach us, eh? It's recorded.
Well, we
John
put
will
remember,
talk.
all the
Don't have to
disclaimers.
cover it. Make sure they're okay.
And also, like, keeping in mind, like, that the fraudsters are always 2 steps ahead of us.
Yeah, they are. And this is
Absolutely.
becoming a big thing. Actually, Rahul has created a bit of like a fraud detection agent that he's gonna show Ben and I first, and then he might use that as his use case when he shows you guys. And that'll be a good example of agentic AI, I think, Rahul, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So
Looking
again, we'll
forward
vary
to
the
it.
topics, but yeah, we'll cover the ethics probably in a couple of weeks, because I think Rahul, you're ready to go probably for next week. And just keep the topics. If you want certain topics, if you're looking for a certain prompt, right, or you have a certain question, feel free to send it in just as a reply to this invite. And Ben, Rahul, and I will either schedule one of these sessions to be about that, or if it's quick, we'll send you back a quick reply or maybe some assets that we already have built. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Have a
Thanks,
great
guys. Everybody
weekend.
have a great weekend. Try and get outside. Enjoy the weather. Bye.
Bye.